which and when?
Thank you very much for the invitation here. And it's a great pleasure to be here again in this meeting, this room. I just on this time I would congratulate to the organizers and Professor Hesham and Ghazali for, and also for the whole Igiloc group, that you have been able to make an interdisciplinary oncology group for GI cancer together. It's not the case in Germany, and I would love that this would happen there and in other countries. It's still a problem that officially and in all sites and levels the different disciplines do not work together. They do sometimes in patients, but not as a group. So we have a lot of drugs in colorectal cancer now, some more relevant, some less relevant. We have some new ones, which are the green ones, which are arriving in the treatment strategy very soon. The TAS-102 is also a targeted drug, but I will not speak about this. Targeted drug means they target the target like the fluoropyrimidines, but it's different from this. It's highly effective in last-line treatment and will be in the market in Europe end of the year for last-line treatment, and trials underway for second-line treatment as well. So this is a targeted drug, but I do not speak about this. Another targeted drug which is new is the ramucirumab, which is also available in Europe within the next few months. It's another bevacizumab. It's probably not better, and I will only show one slide about this. The other targeted drugs, erlotinib, and it shows slide, and the new one targets are HER2 and BRAF, and I show slides at the end of the talk. But the main comparison is related to the bevacizumab cetuximab question, and in addition we have to have in mind that we have different diseases in advanced colorectal cancer. One is the classical metastatic disease with metastases in different organs or different places, but the one with liver-lung location only without relevant other metastases is a biological distinct entity, which is a good prognostic patients, and where it makes really sense to add local treatment to the systemic chemotherapy, as been shown from the M. Anderson data, same probably in any other center and also in Egypt now, that those patients who go for secondary surgery or local treatment have a chance for long-term survival about 50%, in some centers 30%, in large series about 35%. So we have to have all this in mind, that we have different patient populations if you make comparisons between the drugs and combinations. This is not done in most of the trials, because we have, in addition to systemic treatment, local regional approaches, all of them, and we have to use them in the patient. And it's really very excellent that in your group here, in the Igiloc group, you have all these options, not only discussed today and tomorrow, but also combined, at least for several patients, and you have the options here available. So this is reflected in this grouping. The group 1 is the one which is a specific entity which deserves optimal chemotherapy and optimal local regional approach together, if ever applicable. This is another view on the bevacizumab combinations. This is an overview and called meta-analysis from all the trials. If you put them all together, you find an increase for PFS for bevacizumab combinations, whatever chemo partner is used and whatever schedule is used, oral or IV. So finally there's a positive significant hazard ratio in favoring the bevacizumab combination. If it's for PFS, sorry, and this is, I lost the slide obviously, this is also for overall survival. It's not borderline, it's significant, but it's a hazard ratio which is not tremendous, very high, but it's positive. So what about the cetuximab? The difference is it's only for half of the patients available. That's a major problem, the major difference. Is it better? No, it's the same like if you combine it with infusion of 5-FU, as Professor Duyard just said, discussed before, then we see again a significant benefit with a nice hazard ratio for progression-free survival and for overall survival, but not for the oral combinations and not for the bolus 5-FU combinations. So even the COIN study, if we separate out the infusion part from the Igiloc part, the infusion part is in the same trend like all the other trials. So it's clear it's only for the 50% wild-type RAS patients, and it's only with infusion of 5-FU. More importantly, if we have to look with respect to the group 1 discussion, the one with liver-lung metastases, which are potentially candidates for surgery if they can undergo surgery or local measurements. If we look on the response rate in the EGFR inhibitor combinations, bevacizumab combination trials, there are more data on EGFR than for bevacizumab, but these data show a tremendous difference in a response rate between plus or minus EGFR inhibitor or plus or minus bevacizumab. So clearly, from this simple comparison, we know that for taken all patients together, we have a higher response rate with the cetuximab panitumab-based combinations in comparison to bevacizumab. If we take then out of these studies, which have not been targeted for liver and lung patients only retrospective analysis, to the liver-limited disease patients, those who had zero resection within these trials. Not many patients, but they show clearly that with the combination with cetuximab-based combinations, there is a high rate of, or highly improved rate of zero resection with cetuximab panitumab. And this was a reason why we in the consensus had grouped for the RAS wild-type patients, the left part that we have grouped, for the group 1, the cetuximab or panitumab combination on the place most preferred option. So we made a scoring to use in these patients the EGFR inhibitors. For the mutant, that's not possible, and there we had the FOLFOX/CELOX that was just discussed in whether this is true right or not, but FOLFOX/CELOX was chosen because of more data available in comparison to FOLFIRI, auxiliary bevacizumab as the optimal treatment. So for group 2, there was no difference in scoring anymore for this regimen. So now, what about the head-to-head comparisons? We have 3 head-to-head comparisons now available, mostly more or less final data, CLGB and the ARO style for my own group, the FIRE3, which is a specific group in the ARO, which is the south of Germany, Bavarian, mostly practitioners in oncology. So and this group mainly have done cetuximab-based trials. Now the first head-to-head comparison from that group within the ARO. And then we have a small peak trial. Everybody knows the design, head-to-head comparisons. Enough patients in CLGB. In FIRE3, half of these patient numbers in peak is a small randomized phase 2. CLGB, again the data, the response rate and the PFS and overall survival in the RAS wild type, it's no difference at all. Hazard ratio is 1. Response rate, however, in this last analysis in the wild type RAS, there seems to be a difference with a significant. So this indicates and reflects what we have seen before in the single trials I showed before. Even head-to-head comparison shows that EGFR inhibitors have, independent of the other drugs, make an advantage in terms of response rate. 54% versus 68%. So this is significant, and the question is this clinically relevant or not? This is taken all patients together, not only liver-only patients, all patients together. So does it make a relevance if you look on the median progression-free and median overall survival? The answer is no in that study. So there's a bit difference, improvement, but has no impact on outcome. So the first question is, does it matter? The PFS in the curves, we've seen this so often, and the overall survival in the curves, virtually no difference at all. The chemo backbone, we had this discussion just before, and this is within the head-to-head comparison of the targeted drug, just showing that whatever you combine the FOLFOX or FOLFIRI in standard doses and schedules, there is no difference at all. So both drugs work with both chemo backbones in the same manner, same approach, more or less. The overall survival, again, there's virtually no difference in outcome. So it seems to be that if we look in the right way on these questions we had before, there seems to be no difference, and we can use what we want overall seen in all patients. It's not demonstrated, not analyzed for subgroups, for liver only, for example, or other patients. So that's overall patients together, as a pity. So, but CLGB gave us data about the role of secondary resection in both arms. And this is a nice analysis, which, however, is not so clear because it does not tell us the response rate in the subgroups with liver only versus the other ones. It just tells us that 10%, or it's even more, it's 13% of the patients had secondary surgery and had been resected with R0, no evidence of disease. And if you think on the United States, big country, many participants in the trial over 10 years time, and we have to say that it's really an achievement in such a trial to have so many patients secondary resection with no evidence of disease. 45 patients in the bevacizumab arm and 66 patients in the cetuximab arm had R0 resection of liver or lung or both. So if you then look on the response rate in these both groups, there is a high response rate with bevacizumab, 82%, and 68% in cetuximab, which is not really a significant difference, but shows at least there is not such much difference with what we saw before. If you look on liver patients only, liver, lung only. So this is a high response rate, I think, in these patients. And if you look on the outcome of these patients, the no evidence of disease or survival from those patients who had been tumor-free after chemo and surgery. This is not 50% like in MD Anderson, it's 20-25% after a long time, after 8 years, 25%. But there's no difference between bevacizumab or cetuximab. So again, the question is how we judge this data. For me, in the moment, this data show for all patients no difference, including liver and lung only, in final outcome. And the median survival of 30 months is really in the upper level of the trials currently. What about our FIRE study? The overall endpoint, the first endpoint was response rate with 500 patients, and there was no difference in response rate, but there was an improvement in survival. I just showed, because you know all the data, this analysis of a subgroup, those who had controlled or reviewed responses by external reviewers, and this shows clearly that, again, like said before, in this comparison, the intensity of response is higher in all patients, about 25% or 20% more downsizing of metastases with cetuximab. But again, does this change the outcome. The PFS is not different at all. So this substantial improvement in deepness of or whatever response, more response, does not change the overall outcome if you take all patients together. For survival, there is a difference which is surprising high after starting after 2 years. Separation after 2 years with an 8 months delta or improvement. And this is different to the CLGB trial, completely different. And if you look here, the arm with cetuximab is in the same range like the CLGB trial. The FOLFIRI arm with bevacizumab is lower than the CLGB trial. I come back to this in a second. What about peak? On the right side is the wild type all RAS patients, but you see it's only 160 patients total who are available for this. Again, no difference in response rate, like in the fire, but the difference. But you see here, 57 patients, 86 patients. This is a known number of 68, known number of patients, and it's very difficult to take these data as a final data or important data. But it shows in the same trend like the fire, with the PFS improvement and with the overall survival improvement, separating earlier after one year. So if you take the CLGB trial and the FIRE3 as a main trial with more patients together, there's one outlier, which is the bevacizumab arm of FIRE3, which is 25 months median survival, which is in the lowest range of the ongoing trials now, which have been published now. So the outlier is the control arm or the bevacizumab arm in our AIO study, and the CLB trial shows that what we would expect today in both arms as the standard. So after all, we have conflicting data about the role of cetuximab or bevacizumab for all patients taken together. And I think we are not able to make a statement that we have to use cetuximab in all patients with wild type at the moment based on these conflicting data. And I think it's not so relevant anymore because we should go forward. What are our new options? Our new options are the 4-drug regimen with bevacizumab, which is published finally with the higher response rate with the 4-drug regimen, and in particular with the significantly higher overall survival after the final data have been published now. So this is clearly indicating that we can one step forward with a 4-drug regimen with tolerable toxicity and costs. And if you look again on this patient with liver-lung only, the Olivia trial is 80 patients randomized, ASCO presentation now 2 years ago. R0 resection rate is doubled, the overall response rate is 60, increased to 80%, and the PFS from 12 to 18 months. And here's a curve for this. So the 4-drug regimen is highly active with bevacizumab in liver-only patients. The same what we have seen before in the CLGB trial. So obviously in this group 1 patients, this is a very active combination, and the 4-drug regimen is very active as well. Another part of the study is showing that there's no difference for RAS, but the BRAF, the BRAF mutation patients have the best benefit from the 4-drug versus 3-drug regimen. And these are the best data we have available for BRAF mutated patients. It's better than any data for cetuximab. So at least for this subgroup, however, with very little number of patients, 27 patients, we have to conclude that this subgroup, BRAF positive mutated patients, we should use a 4-drug regimen because we have nothing better at the moment. However, the data are very limited. The second study with the 4-drug regimen is my own study, which is finished accrual, but only 230 patients. It's a randomized phase 2. Data are coming next year's ASCO. Let's see what comes out of this head-to-head comparison, this 4 versus 3 drug. Same as with the cetuximab-based combination, 80% response rate, but more toxic than the bevacizumab-based combinations, and I doubt that this will come to a routine use because toxicity is really high. Also, effect is good. Ramucirumab, you see here the comparison of ramucirumab in second line. Something is wrong here. Can you correct this? It's automatically going forward. This is the ramucirumab. You see a significant improvement in progression-free survival and overall survival, same like bevacizumab, or even more pronounced than bevacizumab, 1,000 patients. So this is ready for registration now, and therefore we'll have the drug, and we have a competitor to bevacizumab in second line and probably in first line soon. So what about the other targets? Finally, very short, the targeted drug alotinib, which is EGF targeting, has been investigated by our French colleagues in maintenance treatment versus beva alone, and there is indeed a significant survival benefit just by 4.5 months of alotinib in addition to bevacizumab. So it seems to work to introduce a new drug, an EGFR inhibitor, oral tyrosine kinase inhibitor in maintenance phase to go for survival. Will not be registered, so not be available for this, but it's interesting targeted. Not even survival now is significant, 0.03. Another target for the BRAF mutant patients, 7% of the patients, very poor outcome, is the combination of targeted drugs. This is the pathway. I will not go through why MEK inhibitors plus BRAF inhibitors are used in combination. If you look here, this is a combination, this is BRAF inhibitor alone. Last line treatment, improvement in few patients. If it's combined with MEK inhibitor, BRAF inhibitor plus MEK inhibitor, you see more responses in this last line patient population. And if you combine this with the triplets, with the cetuximab, which is is independent of EGFR mutation or RAS mutation, you have a high rate of response. Most patients have a substantial improvement and response in last line treatment, 26%. So that's the way to go, just targeted drugs without chemotherapy in these patients in last line, and hopefully the first line studies will show the same or improvement. So there's light in the horizon for these poor patients. The other one is HER2, 7 or 6% of the patients have HER2 overexpression. This is in new data from this year's ASCO from Italian group with in the Heracles trial, last line treatment, trastuzumab plus lapatinib, so tyrosine kinase inhibitor plus the antibody without chemotherapy, just the targeted drugs in refractory patients, and 23 patients, and the response rate is 33%, very surprisingly high in last line. The PFS is substantial for these patients, 5.5 months. And to see one of the examples. So this really is a surprise that it's simple targeted drug combination on one target is working so good in these patients. And this will be another step forward for first line clinical trials now, starting with this group. What about the PD-1? The checkpoint inhibitor targeting is another targeted drug. We will see it's working in combination with bevacizumab plus Folfox, but we do not know that comparative trial is starting. So what we do now, we look in targeted drugs, not in the traditional way. This discussion on cetuximab versus bevacizumab should be over. We have to look forward. And therefore we need new trials. This is one of the trials, or the first one, which is a screen trial, which I developed in Germany. It's now taken over from Roche. Module trial in Turkey. Some colleagues from Cairo is working with this within the trial. I appreciate this very much. We look on the maintenance phase and make a control arm, where there's a targeted drugs combination, targeted on the target which a tumor has. So it's a new design of the trial within a large randomized situation, 1,700 patients worldwide. And this is the ongoing arms, which is the PD-1 ligand inhibitor versus control, and the BRAF mutated group. lot of preclinical laboratory work around this, a lot of molecular work, and liquid biopsy, and all these things are done. So finally, I will come where we are now with the comparison bevacizumab, cetuximab. Did the schedule change? I don't think that we have to change this. This is one of the algorithms which are coming out. There will be new algorithm coming out from the ESMO consensus group this year, very soon. This will be not so clear, I think, anymore like the last one. I think we have to accept that we have different options, and we have now the 4-drug regimen in the for both groups, mutant and wild-type groups. The 4-drug regimen with the bevacizumab, we have the triplets with cetuximab or bevacizumab, and we have the HER2 in addition, and the ramucirumab. So the field is more complicated, and but I think all patients will have benefit if we use all these drugs, the new drugs and the new targets, at least while the treatment. And for the group 1, which is the most important, the one where we hope to cure the patient, there I think the difference based on these data are not so big anymore between bevacizumab and cetuximab, and I would just go forward and follow the new data from the 4-drug combination for these patients. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Professor Schmal, for this excellent presentation. And we have more time for only one question, please, for Professor Dr. Schmal. Yes, Dr. Nas.
No?
Thank you, Dr. Schmal. Very nice presentation. My question about everyone goes with the RAS wild type, but what about the RAS mutant type? Because even with the data of the bevacizumab in most of the trials, it's active in the RAS wild type. But in the RAS mutant, the activity even of the beva is questioned. And there was a review done by Dr. Heinemann in the ESMO 2014, trying to see the results of even the anti-EGFR, in the bevacizumab in the mutant type of the RAS, and the conclusion from Dr. Heinemann that it is an active drug, but it's active also in the RAS wild type. So how could we choose a drug or the first line, chemo doublet or chemo in the mutant type RAS?
Your question is bevacizumab working in both groups? Can you give my slides? Hello? Can I have my slides back? I skipped the slide. There is one analysis in the TRIBE study showing that there is no difference at all between RAS mutation and non-RAS mutation patients with a 4-drug versus 3-drug regimen. So there's no difference at all. This is the analysis from Heinemann was based on the older data. It's in the different trials. But if you have the head comparison and look on 1,500 patients population, there's no difference at all. I can just probably show you shortly this. This is important discussion and